Alright, everyone, today, we're diving into a fascinating philosophical question that deals with personal identity. We're going to explore David Hume's challenge to the concept of a stable self and how Immanuel Kant responds to it in his critique of pure reason. Let's break it down step by step. First, let's start with Hume. He famously said, "I never can catch myself at any time without perception, and never can observe anything but the perception." Now, what does he mean by that? Hume was an empiricist, which means he believed that all knowledge comes from sensory experience. When he looked inward, trying to find this thing called the self, he didn't find some constant, unchanging entity. Instead, he found only a bundle of ever-changing perceptions, thoughts, feelings, sensations, coming and going like scenes in a movie. According to Hume, what we call the self is really just this collection of perceptions linked by memory, but there's no actual core self behind them. This idea challenges the traditional philosophical notion of personal identity. For centuries, philosophers assumed that the self was a stable, enduring substance, something that persisted over time and gave us a sense of continuity. Hume's critique raised a huge problem. If we can't observe the self as something distinct from perceptions, does it even exist as a separate, unified entity? Now, enter Immanuel Kant, who saw this as a serious issue. In his critique of pure reason, Kant doesn't completely reject Hume's observations but argues that Hume missed something crucial. Kant proposes that while we don't have direct sensory access to the self as an object, the self must exist as the organizing principle behind all our experiences. Here's how it works. Kant introduces the idea of the transcendental unity of apperception. That's a fancy way of saying there must be a unified I that binds all our perceptions together into a coherent experience. Think of it like a thread running through a string of beads. The thread isn't one of the beads, but without it, the beads wouldn't hold together. Similarly, Kant argues that the self isn't something you can observe directly, like one of Hume's perceptions, but it's the condition that makes perception and thought possible in the first place. In simpler terms, while Hume thought the self was just an illusion created by memory, Kant believed the self is necessary for us to even have memories, perceptions, or thoughts at all. It's not something we see, it's something we are at a fundamental level, a necessary condition for experience. So, to recap, Hume challenges the notion of personal identity by claiming there's no observable self beyond a bundle of perceptions. Kant responds by reframing the self as the unifying structure that makes experience possible. Both ideas have shaped centuries of debate on what it really means to be a person.